there. My name is Heather Feather. I am the owner of Rare Bird Medicine, and today's topic is I Know Best. I've been thinking in the past week or so about labels and the way we label ourselves and the way I label myself specifically. And as I label myself, the more I get to know me. I'm 48. I'll be 49 in November. I'm almost at around 5 decades of knowing the self in this flesh costume and this iteration and expression of Heather Featherness. And I would say I get to know myself more and more every year. The more labels I choose that tend to kind of agitate. They tend to cause some agitation in the two legs, you guys. And I find it really interesting because the agitation comes from other individuals feeling as though they know better than I what I am, which is that's riveting to me. It's like, now I can't say that I don't ever play this character in my life. May I not, because it's my strong intent to not. But I do not assume that I know who you are. I have not walked with you in every single lifetime ever. And even if we've been in the same soul collective, in this lifetime, I'm changing soul collectives, so that's not going to continue. But even if we've been in this same soul collective for a long time, we've had tons of lifetimes together, we've had tons of karma that we've built and developed to grow and evolve the self. Still, you don't walk with me every breath in any of the flesh costumes, and you still don't walk with me every life. So whatever it is that makes this happen, bless you, universe. Whatever it is that makes this matrix of being, first of all, it's a very strange universe, first of all. But second of all, there's not another being that knows better than I who it is that I be. So I'm going to talk about some of these labels. One label that I use, I asked actually the shaman I was apprenticing with for many, many years. I was like, how does a shaman even know when that label or that title is theirs? Like, when is that title an appropriate title? When does someone know that's the title that is them, that it defines them? At the time, I was 42, and he goes, I guess when you're about 42 years old. I love it. That's a very shamanic answer because it causes a laugh. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, my mentor and teacher, was Charles Lightwalker. But, it's like me using the label of shaman. There are many, if I say, oh, my name's Heather Feather, I'm a shaman, that many two-leggeds will immediately want to go, no, first of all, you're white. So there's a foundational assumption that you have to have brown skin to be a shaman. Second of all, I'm from the West. Oh, shamans aren't from the West. They're from South America. They don't come from here. There are Peruvian shamans that hand down an ancient knowledge that says the shamans of the future will come from the West. Now that's coming from shamans in Peru. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, a lot of the foundational assumptions that you might make about whether someone has the right to use a label or not are just that, assumptions. And they do make an ass out of you and me because you don't know what I be. I have had a past life in Indonesia with my brother in which we were both shamans, our parents were shamans, and we used sacred geometry to help heal. The bear shaman and medicine man that I train with as often as I can in the plant medicine world, we had a past life in Africa, and we were shamans, and we were using mental technologies to help aid the tribe and evolve the tribe. I've had many iterations on the shamanic path, and this just happens to be another one, and this is the flesh costume that I chose to go along with a title I've held many times. As I've said, I'm not a YOLOer. I don't think you only live once. I think life is eternal. I think energy cannot be created nor destroyed. I think there's a lot of ways to say what I just said. And in that eternality, we pick up a lot of different labels, a lot of different titles. And I think it's really interesting when another being feels that they know better than the person that is actually walking the shoes of their being, what that person is, What's going on there? As psychic and as talented and adept as I am as an intuitive, and as much attention as I put into intuitive capacities, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairgustance, clairalience, claircognizance. There are many psychic senses. I've worked to develop a whole bunch of them, not even all of them. And I've done it most of this life. And I've done it in other lifetimes as well. Even with all of that, I know well that no matter how clearly I'm able to see with all three of my eyes, I will never fully see you. You will never fully see me. You will never totally know me because you're not walking the steps I'm walking every breath. I had this come up as well, after taking every online test I can find and watching every YouTube video I can get my hands on as of late around autism and neurodivergence. Every test I took was like, there's 100% likelihood that you are autistic and neurodivergent. And I mean, scoring 154 out of 200, and they say if you get 60, there's a likelihood that it's there. And I'm scoring 154 out of 200. Very high scoring in each test that I took of every test. And there's a lovely woman that I watch. I think her title is Mom on the Spectrum. Her name is Tyler. She's great. I also watch Orion Kelly, that autistic guy. Both of them have great videos that have taught me a lot. But one of the things she taught me is that the University of Washington did a study around this piece. And they found that if you think you have autism or are neurodivergent and you take a test around it or several tests around it, and it says that you are, the likelihood and probability of that is exponentially high, that's accurate, And so I had an experience where my ex-boyfriend needed some help, and he's somebody I love and care for. And so I had a period where I invited him into my house to live with me so he could get some stuff situated in his life. And he's moved on and is doing really well. And I'm praying for him a lot to continue to thrive as he moves in his new direction. But I had mentioned to him, I've taken all these tests. Looks like I'm autistic. I'm neurodivergent. And he was like, you're not autistic. Heather, you're not autistic, And he knows better than I do what I am. You're not autistic. And a lot of times those ideas that we have of you're not that, you can't be that, you're not that, I don't know you as that, so no, I can't accept you as that. This happens with the trans community. It happens in a lot of different ways in our world. No, you can't be that. I know you as this other thing. It stems from an idea we have about what that means. And often it stems from loving the person and not wanting them to suffer in that way. But sometimes it has to do with having this idea. So if you've seen someone that was neurodivergent or had autism and the way that they did stimming, and stimming is where you have a repetitive thing that you do that helps you to transmute, in my personal experience, helps you to transmute or shift the energy that is present because of the overwhelm that you feel being neurodivergent because the amount of information you actually receive in each moment now. And so they might stim like this. I often stim like this. When people are talking to me, I'm often rubbing a finger. And I'm often doing it by my side. I'm not doing it like this. What? Tell me more. I might. I'm Sicilian. Sometimes I'll be like, come on, give me that data. But usually it's down by my side. And women have a higher propensity to mask or fit into a neuronormative paradigm. So they tend to hide things like that more often. But if you've seen someone that's neurodivergent and the way they stim is like this, and you've only had a handful of experiences with people with autism or neurodivergence, and the handful were doing something like a stimming that's more visible. Neurodivergence is a spectrum, okay? And so just because that person stims in that way doesn't mean that every neurodivergent person stims in that way. And it also doesn't mean that that person stimming in that way, that's bad or wrong, or that they should do something different because it makes you uncomfortable. That's actually how they're making themselves comfortable. That's how they're self-soothing. Stimming is a self-soothing practice. And so they're helping themselves to self-regulate and to practice self-care and self-love and self-respect. And so that in and of itself, if you ever see a neurodivergent person stimming, can be its own teaching of, you can take care of yourself, even if others want to judge it and think it's weird, But he was adamant, you are not autistic, And he and I dated for 4 years, a couple of decades ago. It's been ages, but, we dated for a hot minute, I can say that, and lived with each other in a few different spaces. And so I thought it was really interesting that he knows better than I what I am. And so I'm trying to take a look at this in my own life. Is there any way, Heather Feather, in which you are deciding that you know better than another what they are? I know you far better than, even though we're all obsessed with ourselves as humans because we have egos. I know far better who you are. I'm a much better witness of your character. And so I'm looking into that. And there are some ways that I can take the people in my life and put them in a box. Especially this can happen with family. You know, your family member, it's like, you've always been this way. You've always, it's like my family might think, oh, you've always not done the corporate thing or haven't had a 401k, or I've had a 401k. I've done the corporate thing. I don't find it that appealing. I don't last in it very long because another aspect of being neurodivergent is you don't often keep jobs very long. So most jobs I've had like 1 to 2 years. My brain gets bored. I get bored. It's like, okay, I understand everything. I'm bored now, and so and it can be difficult also. Like the more time you spend in a job, the more you might get comfortable, the more you might let your neurodivergence shine forth. And then people are like, she's weird. And then you're like, let me go where I might not have to feel weird every time I go to work. Let's go start a new job and then see how long I can go without showing up as super weird to these people. It's like, bless it. But this isn't just about neurodivergence. It's not just about being a shaman. It's just about your labels. Like, what are your labels? What I do know is that if your labels, let's say, are trans, if your labels are shaman, if your labels are, XY, blatant materialist, whatever it is that people may want to judge or be like, you shouldn't be like that. We're not the commander of other people's labels, and we're not the commander of other people's evolution. Like, I'm not the boss of how many lifetimes you take to evolve. I'm not the boss of that. I'm not the boss of what is evolved. I've got my ideas of what evolved is, and it usually involves love. But I also might be wrong. I don't know everything. I'm just a flesh sack full of opinions, just like you or any entity that ever watches this video. We're just a bunch of opinion sacks in a flesh costume, And so, are there any ways, Heather Feather is asking herself and inviting you into the conversation with her today, in which you are thinking that you know better what another is? They're always selfish. They're always Lola. No, they're not. Nobody's always selfish. You know what I mean? Like, always. I've seen a lot of things recently of I was watching a show around people that got away from serial killers, And so literal, like cannibal serial killers that are like, and then I just let her go. I didn't want to kill her. She seemed nice, So you can say, no, like, people, you're always this way. It's so extreme. And maybe they are most often that way with you. And the question is, why does that person always reflect that character back to you? Maybe it's because you put them in a box and they don't have any other mask or face to show you because you're so committed to seeing that role. I've seen this in others where people, they have an idea of what Heather Feather is and have a very difficult time showing up in the truth and the fullness of my being because they're so locked in and committed. And I've watched myself give them a divergent energy and frequency and offering from their idea of what I am, and they can't even see it. They can't even see what happened there. They still look for the nugget that feeds their idea of what I am. Okay, I just try to get away from those people because it's like, okay, you have little narrow boxes you need to place everyone on in a shelf, and there's no room for me to grow or evolve or be different. I'm not the same teenager I was that didn't get the oil change and her engine exploded. I know to get oil changes now, right? But my family might be like, you don't know to get an oil change. It's like, yeah, I'm 48. I figured that one out. You know what I mean? So are there any ways you are deciding that anyone in your life is a set thing and that's all they are? Can you take them out of the box? Can you look at them anew? Can you give them the freedom to recognize that they may know a little better than you who they truly be? You can always subscribe to Rare Bird Medicine on YouTube, like and comment there. I always love to hear your thoughts. I'm one.